I'm John. I'm 45. I've just put a USB lead in the right way up first time. Let's play Zero Build Battle Royale. So I feel like some sort of apology is due at this point because when the match started, I was talking on the phone to my parents, um, and I forgot in the capture settings to turn off headset recording. So what we got was an absolute banger of a round, but with my half of a conversation over it. Because it ended up being such a good round that I really wanted to use it. Normally I'll play and talk at the same time. In this case, that was not possible, so you need to know why there is no gameplay sound. Because you don't need to hear my half of a conversation with my family. Which kind of feels like a lesson that a lot more people need to learn, I think, because there is a frightening number of people at large who have no compunction about their phone audio being broadcast to an entire train or bus stop or park. The list goes ever on. It really, I find it really astounding. Not just because it's antisocial, not just because it's very jarring to be having a bus journey and hearing some really tinny anime just sort of playing at full volume. But just the conversations that people are prepared to have on public transport. I mean, even before we get to the smartphone era, I remember quite a few years ago, I was coming back from having played a gig in Leeds, and there was a guy on the train who was very loudly detailing not even his, but a family member's, is like surgical woes, like gastric surgery. So that is never a pleasant topic uh, at the best of times. But to have a man very loudly up the other end of a train talking about, like, so well they cut out this bit and then there was a problem with leaking fluid everywhere because they weren't able to seal it up properly, so they had to do this bit, and he's having all this. He's having like gastric acid pumping up through his windpipe every 20 minutes or something. I'm not a physician of any kind, so you don't need to correct me on my surgical inaccuracies. Um, But yeah, so he was doing all this, and you could see people on the train just quietly putting their sandwich just back down on the little tray and going, "Do you know what, I'm gonna eat that later, hopefully." Uh, so I think it's amazing what people are prepared to share with one another in that publicly. Um, and I mean, I used to live a little way out of town, and so I'd get the bus from my work to town, and then I'd have to get another bus from town to home. And there was always somebody sitting in front of me, uh, having a FaceTime, an earphoneless speaker FaceTime call with somebody, and they were always like wrapped in an hoodie and slumped on a settee. But it was a really listless conversation about, like, Darren still owes me 20 quid, or, oh, I can't believe he said this, that's really blah 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 blah. And it feels like that really, I mean, it can wait until home, until you get home, can't it? Can't it? And not only please can this wait until you get home, but if it can't, headphones at the very least. Put earphones on. Put something over your ears so that we don't get to listen. Because again, as I said, the speaker quality is awful, which makes me wonder what the person on the other end can hear. Because surely all they can hear is like engine noise and speed bumps. It's not an easy way to have a conversation, I don't think. Yeah. But speakerphone is the absolute blight of the public phone call world. And as a side note, have you tried not holding your phone perpendicular to your head? Because the design of the phone is quite significantly, there is a little bit at the top for the sound to come out into your ear so that only you can hear it, and then there's a bit at the bottom for the sound to go in from your mouth. That is phone design, and the mobile phone is very much the descendant of the landline phone, and the design for that did, like, landline phones. Can you imagine if landline phones just had one sort of sound orifice, and you had to keep passing it from ear to mouth, ear to mouth, ear to mouth? No, the design of it is very much so that you can cater to ear and mouth at the same time, and that's you don't even need headphones for that. Oh wow! I don't know when this started. I think I do know where it started. Because I suddenly remembered that a lot of people would blame The Apprentice for this, and never more have I wondered about our ancestral connections to flailing chimps just sort of imitating things. Because wasn't it on The Apprentice that people would be having speakerphone conversations because they needed to for the cameras? And is that how this ended up being a thing? Because yes, speakerphone is fine if you're filming television, I guess. Yeah, I really couldn't believe how well this game ended up going. Especially because I was having to try and I was having to try and keep things fairly level-headed for the purposes of talking to my parents on the phone. Because obviously one of the things that you don't really want while you're talking about a bunch of serious things, you don't want to be going. So I think we should be. Oh yes, yes. It doesn't go well in polite conversation at all. So don't do it. I was on a bus years ago. This was, just thinking about earphones and buses. I had earphones in, but my MP3 player had stopped. I think whatever I was listening to just ended. and somebody got on the bus, and I think I was standing because it was quite busy, and I'd moved out of the way for him. And on his way past, he just, assuming that I was listening to something and couldn't hear him, just goes, "Cheers, big nose." And I was too stunned to speak. It's it's certainly one of those things that I think, if there are moments in life where you really wish that you had the presence of mind to respond in such a devastating way that they never that they never speak again. Um, but all too often, when it comes to the crunch, uh, just mind blank inaction, I think, is is the only thing you can muster. Also, how did I not hit? Do you remember that video, the earlier video where somebody that I was spectating after I lost? I was spectating somebody, and they seemed to shoot through General Grievous's legs, and I went, "How did you do that?" And I don't know how I did that either. I shot. I'm sure I shot at that guy and managed to shoot. I didn't even shoot through his legs. I've got no idea what happened there. Um, but yes, cheers, big nose. I've got no idea how I had nothing to say in response to that, because that should definitely be something that gets a reply. Crazy. I'm always routinely stunned by things that people say to me. Um, I used to play. There used to be a pub in town that had an open mic every Sunday night, and I'd hit this open mic up, and it was that was home away from home. So you could see me there. I was performing every Sunday night, and loving it. Every now and again, so it's just something strange would happen, and I remember one evening having done my set and come back to the bar. Um, and a woman came up to the bar and she said, "I really enjoyed your set, but I really think you should get your thyroid gland checked out." Um, to which I said, "What?" And she said, just do it." And I said, "Why do you think I need to get my thyroid gland checked?" And she said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's just, I mean, it's just, well, it's your eyes. Never mind." And just sort of hurried back. And I've thought about that, I think, on and off for the last 25 years. Um, well, it's probably more like 23 years ago. 23? 22 years, let's say. And it's a very similar time period. I was again performing at the Full Moon open mic, and I finished a song, and somebody called out, "That was quite good," which is the most dispassionate thing you can shout in the middle of it. Like, to have the urge to call out, and that's all you can muster, is a hell of an achievement. I did a gig at so we had a local music festival 2 weeks ago, and I always do a solo set of some kind at this festival. So in February, so I'm starting this from about 5 different angles, aren't I? So I now have in my repertoire a tenor guitar, which it's a 4-string instrument. It's like if you took an 8-string bouzouki and took all the double course extra strings off, you'd have a tenor guitar essentially, and it's about the same shape as a guitar. It's just smaller. So during my set the other week, um, I was swapping over to the tenor guitar, and in introducing it, I pointed out, I said, like, I broke my ankle in February, which I did, um, and obviously I've been a little bit incapacitated, and I've put on a bit of weight, and so the one thing I really felt like I needed was an instrument to make me look bigger. Also, that was hysterical when it blew up that car. I was really pleased with it. This whole section I was really pleased with myself over. Anyway, so I said yes. So I've put on all this weight, and um, I thought, do you know what I really need? What I really need is an instrument that makes me look bigger. And a 6-year-old sitting at the front of the audience, because this is like 1:30 in the afternoon, and a 6-year-old shouts out, "Do you wet yourself?" Which led to a sort of slightly amused murmur from the audience, but also like a bit of bafflement, because that is a really weird thing to shout at somebody. Um, and I replied to the child straight away, but I had no sort of emergency muteness at this point, and I just said yes, constantly, all the time. You're quite lucky to catch me dry, which again sort of brought the audience into he recovered from it. That's good. Um, People at gigs are very strange, very strange. I did a support set for a band once, and got all the way through the set and was just on my last song before handing over to the headliner, and 3 absolutely ruined people came in. One started persistently shouting at me to play Richard Ashcroft, and the other 2 came up to the front of the stage and said, "My friend's just had a divorce come through. Is there any chance you'd let her sing Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson?" What? And I said, "Well, it's not my gig. No one will notice," they replied. And as I was saying, I think they will notice. The other one took the microphone and sang about a verse and possibly a chorus of Man in the Mirror. And the audience and I just shared a dumbfounded moment of, well, this is happening. At which point I gently just released the mic from her grip, asked the audience to give her a round of applause, which they did, and she went off happy as Larry. So that's, yeah. We're getting into the last few minutes of this round, and I couldn't believe I was still on the phone at this point, and couldn't believe that I was still on the map. This was incredibly tense, and the sound come back now. In terms of weird things that people have said to me, I have also just remembered. So I used to work in an independent music shop chain. When I say music, I mean like CDs and DVDs and things. And we used to open till 9 o'clock, 8 or 9 o'clock on a Thursday evening. And there was a woman who kept coming in on the late shifts, and every time she came in, she used to tell me how much I looked like Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy. And if you don't know who Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy is, please by all means look him up, because I have none of the qualities that belonged to him, in that I am white, I have not a great deal of hair, and I'm certainly not wearing tight leather trousers on a regular basis. So there. Are you ready for this? Because the cheer I did. And go! If there was a way to get the sound of me running around the living room with my t-shirt over my face, then you would be hearing that right now. Anyway, that's enough for me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm glad to finally bring you one that resulted in a win, because there's only so often you can send in videos of you hitting number 39. Good night!